Hey everyone, and welcome to the Level Up webinar series. Thank you so much for joining us. Due to popular demand and multiple requests, we've decided to host this webinar one more time for you. My name is Lauren, and I'm a part of the IronSource marketing team. Before we get started, I just wanted to tell you a bit more about what we do. Here at IronSource, we build marketing and monetization solutions for app developers. Our ad mediation platform is currently #1 in the market for game devs. Want to learn more? Head to www.ironsrc.com. Today, Nadav Ashkenazi, VP Global Partnerships and Business Development, will be covering all things related to ad monetization and how to design an effective strategy. Whether you're a one-person show or part of an 100-person team, you're going to leave this webinar with actionable insights that will help you supercharge your ad revenue. Please feel free to ask any questions you may have, and Nadav will be sure to answer them either during his presentation or at the end during our Q&A session. Nadav, take it away.
Cool. So thanks for joining, everyone, and we are doing it once again. We did the same webinar just 2 months ago, but here we have another opportunity. And what we'll try to discuss today is what is the best way to implement ads in your game, what kind of ad units can you use, and what are the advantages and disadvantages of each ad unit. I'll start with just a short intro into, you hear me? Okay, I'll start with a short intro into IronSource. As Lauren said, IronSource actually doing two different things. One, we are a platform, a growth platform that is combining both monetization and user acquisition into one platform, one operation with automated processes to make sure that you are squeezing the lemon and utilizing your potential to the end. We are working with most of the big gaming company out there, we're currently 800 employees, 8 years old company, very global, spread around the world. So we'll be happy to also give you a local support wherever you are located. What I'm going to discuss in the next 1 hour is ad monetization and what is the best way to implement ads into your game. I'm going to divide this session into 3 parts. First, we're going to have a short ad units analysis, just to understand what is available out there, what kind of ad units can you use, what are the advantages and disadvantages of each ad unit. Then we'll speak about how to design your ad monetization and to make sure that you are maximizing and implementing the ads in the right way. And then what you can do if you want to take it even one step further and to make sure that you are squeezing the lemon out of your ad monetization through the end. I'll start with the ad unit analysis. First of all, here in IronSource, what we do is we are dividing the different ad units into 2 buckets. One will be user-initiated, meaning that the user is the one to choose to watch an ad, to choose how many ads to watch and how often. And the second bucket will be system-initiated ads, meaning that the developer itself, the app itself, is the one that pushes the ads for the users and decides how often and when an ad will be shown. And it's important to make this distinguish between these 2 buckets because we see different effect of each bucket and different advantages and disadvantages of each ad unit, and this is what we are going to discuss now. I'll start with user-initiated ads or rewarded ads. The pros for these ad units are pretty clear. It generates revenue, right? This is the reason to add these ad units from scratch, from the first start. But more important, what it usually generates is a great user experience. And under the assumption that for user-initiated ads, rewarded ads, a user watches an ad only if and when he chooses to, we can also assume that the user experience is great, right? No reason to complain about watching ads. And what we usually see is that rewarded ads can increase your retention numbers. And it definitely can happen if you are building your game in the right way and you implement ads in the right way, and you sometimes can even use rewarded video and offer wall to fix leaks in your funnel. For example, if you see that you have a drop after a specific session, after a specific level, because a user is out of lives, out of moves, out of any virtual currency that you have in your app, adding an opportunity to watch a rewarded video to get this virtual good that the user is missing and leaving the game because of this or stopping to play for this specific day can usually even improve your retention and the session-length KPIs. And if it's being used right, we see that most of the time, rewarded ads, user-initiated ads, are contributing to retention, which is very important, retention and session length, which is a very important KPI. And if we understand that user-initiated ads are increasing both ARPDAU and retention and session length, it's pretty clear that user-initiated ads are increasing your total LTV. Now, what is the risk? Why not to use user-initiated ads in every game as much as you can? The only disadvantage of user-initiated ads is that it competes with your in-app. The risk of this bucket or family of ads gets into the picture. By the way, if you don't have any IAP, let's say if you are a clear hyper-casual game, usually you want to have as many user-initiated ads as possible to generate revenue, to improve need to balance between these two, and we will discuss this as well. The first ad unit in this bucket will be rewarded video. You guys probably know it. It's between 15 to 30 seconds video. It is usually non-skippable, although it's your choice. You can decide if it will be skippable or non-skippable or skippable after 5 seconds. But the standard in our industry is that rewarded video is non-skippable, again, under the assumption that user chose to watch the reward video for the reward. So we will complete the video to actually get the reward. The average KPI that we see, and this is how you should monitor how well did you implement rewarded video in your game, is on average engagement rate should be 35%. Usage rate, engagement rate, by the way, is what share of users are watching at least one rewarded video a day. 35% engagement rate means that 35% of your users are watching at least one rewarded video every day. The second KPI will be usage rate, which means out of the engaged users, on average, how many rewarded video ads they watch a day, right? Some users will watch only 2, some will watch 8. The average number will be 4.5. And if you multiply the engagement rate with the usage rate, then you get your impression per DAU per day rate, which on average is 1.6. By the way, when I say average, I mean average across all genres. If you want to deep dive into your own genre, we see big differences in this world as well, right? In hyper-casual, it probably can be in the average numbers or even lower. On other games where the virtual economy is stronger, then it's easier to get to a higher number than to have better impression per DAU rate. The average revenue per impression in the United States, I took the United States as an example, is 2 cents. By the way, it's because the average eCPM that we see in this country for rewarded video is about $20. It means that for each impression that is being served, you are generating 2 cents revenue. And total ARPDAU, which is again a multiply of the revenue per impression and impressions per user, is 3.1 cents. Again, average numbers across all genres. Some games can get to 7 cents ARPDAU in rewarded video. Some find themselves maximum at 1.5 cents. Really depends on many things. I'm giving you the average number that we see across our network that is live with all genres out there. Next ad unit in this family of rewarded ads or user-initiated ads is offer wall. Offer wall is a menu of offers that the user can choose to engage with, and on exchange, he gets virtual goods, similar to what happens in rewarded video. Today, offer wall, 95% of offer wall will be based on CPE offers. CPE offers meaning the user needs to install an app and to engage with the app until a certain level, which this is what the advertiser pays for. The average KPIs that we see for offer wall are 6% engagement rate, 1.5 usage rate, and a total of 0.1 impressions per user per day. Now, it's very, very important to understand the differences between offer wall to rewarded video and why do we see so different KPIs. So first of all, rewarded video, what you are asking the user to do is to give you up to 30 seconds of his time, And on exchange, you will get a reward at the value of about 1 or 2 cents, right? Because this is what you are earning from the advertising network for this impression. On Offerwall, it's a whole different story. What you're asking here is not 30 seconds of the user time, is on average 10 minutes of the user time to install and to get to a specific level in other app. Therefore, you're asking much more from the users, but you're also providing much more on exchange, right? Because the average revenue that you are making per completion on Offerwall is $2.5 comparing to only 2 cents on rewarded video. This is again US numbers. It means that the average reward that you give to the user for engaging with Offerwall will be reward value at about $2.5, unlike 2 cents on rewarded video. So if you get it right, Offerwall is usually much more connected to the hard currency of the game, to a much more valuable reward. This is why the engagement rate is also lower, right? It's 6% and not 35% like rewarded video, because the segments of users that is relevant for this ad unit is the more savvy users. And you can say in general that you have few type of users. You have the most savvy users that might pay in your game. You have many more that won't pay, but will engage and spend 10 minutes of their time engaging with Offerwall to get a very high reward, about 6%. Then you have another 35% that will not pay, will not spend 10 minutes of their time, but they will spend 30 seconds of their time for a 2 cents value reward. And then you have about half of your users that are not willing to spend not money and not time in your game for your virtual good. If I'm summarizing this, impressions per user per day of 0.1 and average revenue per completion of $2.5, the average ARPDAU in the US that we see for Offerwall is about 2.5 cents as well. You can see that it's in the similar level as rewarded video, although it's very different. If you don't, in rewarded video, it's easier to implement in games, even if you don't have a very strong virtual economy, right? For hyper casual as an example, because this is a good example for games without a strong virtual economy, you can have rewarded video for a second try, because users will spend 30 seconds of his time to get a second try. No user will spend 10 minutes of his time to get a second try. This is why Offerwall will usually work on a more casual and mid-core games that do have economy and do have virtual goods in the value of $2.5 to provide to the user that will give him value in the game. And in these games, ARPDAU can get even to 5 cents, 6 cents, or more. Really depends on your implementation, and we'll touch this as well. This was the first bucket, the rewarded ads or the user-initiated ads. The second bucket is system-initiated ads. Here, the pros are pretty clear. You're making revenue, right? You're adding interstitial, you're adding banners, you're adding native ads. The goal is to make more money, and this is in general the only pro or advantage that you see. You won't see a lift in retention, a lift in session length, or fix any links in your funnel. And the cons and disadvantages in this case are that the UX is not as good. Again, depends on how you implement it, and we will touch it. If you are doing it on a smart way, the UX might stay as good as without ads. We will touch it. But you are potentially can hurt your retention and session length, because again, you are forcing ads for the user and not allowing the user to choose whether and when to watch an ad. The most common ad unit in the system-initiated family is interstitial, of course. It's a full screen ad, similar to rewarded video. Today, it's mainly video, very, very similar to the same campaign that are running in your rewarded video ad unit. Again, similar, about 15 to 30 seconds video with an end card or a playable end card or something similar. Interstitial, unlike rewarded video, usually are skippable after 5 seconds. Again, just like rewarded video, it is your decision. You can make them non-skippable. You can make them skippable right away. You can make them skippable after 5, 10, 15 seconds, your call. The best practice is 5 seconds. By the way, as you will make it more non-skippable, then your ARPDAU will go up because completion rate will be higher, but your retention might get lower. So you want to balance between these two edges, and we will touch it. Average engagement, here is two impressions per user per day. Unlike rewarded ads, we are not monitoring engagement rate and usage rate because, again, unlike rewarded ads, you are not building a strategy to make the user to decide to watch ads. You can just take the decision. How many ads do you want to show and when? The average revenue per completion is about 1.6 cents, which means $16 in the United States. Similar to rewarded video, but about 20% lower. And if you see 2 impressions per user per day with 1.6 cents per impression, you get to an ARPDAU of 3.2 cents. Again, every genre has its different KPIs. For hyper casual, we can see even 5 or 6 impressions per user per day, and up to 8 or 9 cents ARPDAU only from interstitial, but we will touch this as well. And this is how we look at the total monetization tools that you have per segment in your game. IAP for your 2% most savvy users, offer wall for 6% of the users that are not paying but are savvy enough to spend 10 minutes of their time, 35% of your users for RV, and about half of your users that cannot be monetized unless you are using interstitial, banners, native, or any system-initiated ad unit. And this is the graph that shows the difference between these two buckets. In the left side, we see the system-initiated, the interstitial. In the right side, we see the user-initiated. In that case, it's rewarded video. And what we did here is we increased the number of impressions per user per day, and we analyzed how does it affect the day 3 retention. So in interstitial, we see that it does have a negative impact in many, many cases. Again, this average a few examples. It can be different in your own game. But on average, we see that as you are showing more and more interstitial, definitely if it isn't in natural pauses in the game, then you are hurting your day 3 retention. While on rewarded video, if you are increasing the amount of impressions per user per day, how do you do it? Is by having better reward, having more placement, etc. Then you can actually increase your day 3 retention comparing to without having rewarded video at all. Then what happens in ARPDAU, it's about the same between interstitial and rewarded video. And what we see here is that, first of all, as you are showing more impressions, you are generating higher ARPDAU, right? If you will show only 1 impression, you will have lower ARPDAU compared to 7 impressions per user per day. The ARPDAU curve is about the same between rewarded video and interstitial, but yet what you can easily see is that the incrementality of each impression is getting lower and lower as the session gets deeper. And this is why. In general, today in mobile gaming, the very most of the user acquisition campaigns are performance campaigns. Performance campaigns means that as the user watched already many impressions in the same day. What we see many times is for the first impression in the United States, you can get 40 cents per impressions, or $40 per 1,000 impressions. As you get to the 7th impression, it can already go down to 10 cents or even lower than that, because the conversion and the installs rate on the 7th impressions is much lower than the first impression. And end of the day, when we are considering these two families and the different ad units, we don't really care about ARPDAU, and we don't really care about retention. What we care about is the LTV or ARPU, because this is what we want to optimize. And what we see in rewarded ads, and again, I'm speaking here only about ad ARPU. I'm not speaking about the conflict with in-app purchasing. I will touch it. What we see for rewarded ads, let's say hyper-casual games, is that in general, you want to have as many impressions per user per day as possible. Because as you have more, you have better retention and you have better ARPDAU. It means that total ARPU goes up. and you want to maximize it and maximize this number to be as high as possible. It's hard because you cannot decide what this number will be. You need to make the user to choose to watch so many ads per day. On interstitial, we actually see a different metrics. If you show only 1 or 2 impressions per user per day, let's say only 1 per session, then yes, retention is maximized, but ARPDAU is relatively low, and it gives you a low ad ARPU. If you are showing too many impressions per user per day, let's say every session 10, because you're doing it every 20 seconds, every 15 seconds, you are doing an interstitial impression, you are showing interstitial impressions, then your ARPDAU is probably maximum, but your retention is so low that the total ARPU or LTV is lower than what you can achieve. And at the end of the day, in system initiated ads, in interstitial, you want to find the sweet spot that is optimizing and balancing between showing many ads and have higher ARPDAU to not showing too many ads to make sure that you are not harming the retention enough. And this is what you want to find. And the way to find it today is by A/B testing. Is by have part of your users with 30 seconds cooldown between interstitial, some with 45, some with 60, analyzing the ARPU of each segment, considering both ARPDAU and retention. By the way, one of the features that Aronsource Mediation is working on is automated ARPU optimizer, meaning that we will divide into segments, we will test this exactly for you, and we will find what is the sweet spot for your game, which is very, very different between different games, depends on average session lengths, the length of the mini sessions, and many, many other things. By the way, probably the sweet spot is different also per country, and of course, per operating system. So this was a short overview of the different ad units available within the gaming world. Now let's speak about designing your ad monetization strategy or how to implement the different ad units. My recommendation is always to start with user-initiated ads. By the way, in general, my recommendation is not to make several changes in once, because it's very hard then to analyze and to understand what made what. And if you are doing it step by step, it's easier to understand the effect of each change. So first, start with user-initiated ads. Now you can be two type of game developers. You can be a game developer with insignificant in-app purchasing, and then my recommendation is to maximize your rewarded ads implementation as much as possible, and we'll touch it, many placements, high reward, because in general, you don't have any big disadvantage, you have only advantages. The other option is that you're an IAP-based game, let's say 50-50 between IAP and ads, and then you don't want to maximize the number of impressions per user per day. You want to balance between IAP and ads to make sure that you are maximizing your ARPU. And remember, the 5th impression or the 6th impression doesn't generate the same revenue for you like the first one. So maybe it's smarter for you to cap after 3 impressions, because only the first 3 impressions are giving you enough revenue to justify the competition with IAP. Moreover, showing only few impressions might tease the user to make a purchase and to enjoy more virtual good in the store. Some best practices for rewarded video. So first of all, the most important practice is to differentiate the reward, if possible, the reward type from your IAP. Because if you have the same reward in the store and in rewarded video, then your cannibalization can potentially be higher. Second is to have it exponential and dynamic, meaning that the reward that you give in level 1 shouldn't be the same as the reward you give in level 100. Because in level 1, 10 coins is great. In level 100, 10 coins mean nothing. And if you want to adjust your reward to the level of the economy in this point of time in the game, then you will just see your engagement rate dropping and dropping and dropping. Third is diversified places and items, because every user is different. Some users will choose to watch rewarded video for another life. Some will do it for another coin. Some will do it for another dragon. As you have more options, more and different rewards, then you are answering the needs of more segments in your app, and you're probably going to have higher engagement rate, higher usage rate. Timing should be clean and in natural poses. The traffic driver itself needs to be visible and clear. Because it's an opt-in, if you have the traffic driver in a sub-menu and only half of the users understand that they have the option to watch rewarded video, then your 100% potential is only half of your users. So because it's an opt-in ad unit, what you need to make sure is that all the users understand that they have the option to watch a rewarded video. We'll see the examples of the other two. This is a good example from Merge Plan, which differentiates very well between what you can buy in the store and what you can get for watching rewarded video. This example of GoFish by Quali that adjusts the reward amount from $700 to much more, from the 9 fish to 39 fish according to the level of the game. This is example of Tomb of the Mask by Legendary that have about 6 different rewarded video placements in their app, which allows them to have a very strong engagement rate and usage rate with rewarded video. Example for Adventure Capitalist that have the traffic driver in the main screen, very clear. All the users understand that they have the option to watch a rewarded video to get a free reward, and therefore engagement rate and usage rate can be higher. Timer is also a good best practice because it helps to convert more users, because when users have a short time to take a decision whether they want to watch the rewarded video or not, we see more users tend to click and to watch a rewarded video. And second try is probably the most famous best practice for hyper casual for rewarded video. Offer wall, so I touched it a little bit, but here the best practices are first to connect it to the hard currency, because we understand that in order to generate a healthy engagement, we need to give a reward that is valuable enough to justify spending 10 minutes of your time. It needs to be $2 reward, something like this, and usually hard currency is a better fit for this. It should be in the main screen of the store in a very clean and very natural poses in the app, not in the middle of the game, because again, you're asking the user to spend 10 minutes of his time in order to get this reward. The exchange rate is actually something that you decide what it will be in the offer wall, meaning how many virtual goods are you going to bring per each dollar of revenue. My recommendation is to have the same exchange rate as the store, or even better, because you also don't have the 30% fee that you have for the stores. The exchange rate is net after the fee. And usually for offer wall, we see that pop-ups and double credit promotion help a lot to increase the engagement rate and to make sure that you are making more impressions per user, meaning more revenue. I took a CoinDozer as an example of very good implementation of offer wall. It's in the main screen, very, very clear, connected to the hard currency in the game. It's also in the store, very easy to understand and to use, and therefore we see high engagement for this ad unit. Then after you added rewarded ads, and you understand what is your new metrics, your new benchmark for retention, for LTV, for ARPDAU, then move and add system-initiated ads. Now, here again, just like for user-initiated ads, you need to ask whether you are an IAP game or an insignificant IAP game. If you are an IAP-based developer, then usually adding interstitial is not the best move for you, because the price that you are going to pay for hurting the UX, the retention, etc., and probably hurting your IAP doesn't justify the ARPDAU that you are going to get from interstitial. And therefore, what I recommend for IAP games is to consider using interstitial only for a specific pie of your users. If you remember right, we said that half of your users will not generate any revenue for you, not from the IAP, not from offer wall, and not from rewarded video. And your only way to monetize these users are by showing them system-initiated ads. So this is one option for IAP. By the way, if you want to do it smart, you need to do it based on prediction model, because waiting 30 days to understand if it's going to be a payer or not, and only then showing interstitial, means you already lost most of your users. You didn't enjoy the ARPDAU that you can generate from interstitial. So making a very well prediction model that can allow you to predict whether it's going to be a user that's going to pay / engage with offer / engaging with rewarded video and then act upon is much better. If you don't have IAP, then you probably want to add interstitial to your game in order to have strong enough ARPDAU and LTV, and then you go back to the sweet spot that is what you are looking for based on the revenue and the ARPU that you have from rewarded video. Now let's see what is the right interstitial frequency number to make sure that I'm maximizing my ARPU. Best practice here, and again, what affects and what you need to optimize is not only the frequency, whether you're going to show interstitial every 20, 30, 45, or 60 seconds. Also, what format are you going to show, whether you're going to have an X button, how many clicks are needed in order to get out of the interstitial. As you are doing it more aggressively, ARPDAU will go up, retention will go down for all of these 4 categories, and you want to find the sweet spot for all the 4 of them. It is maximizing your ARPU and LTV. We're getting into the final part, the squeezing the lemon. First of all, it's important to know your benchmark, and this is what I mentioned in the beginning of the session. Every genre has a different benchmark per his own genre for engagement rate, for usage rate, for impressions per user per day. So you need to know what you can achieve and to make sure that you are comparing yourself to the right benchmark according to your game and genre. Second is know your numbers. Even if the average numbers are 40% or 45%, the best performing apps have an engagement rate of 80% or 5 impressions per user per day, and you should aim high to make sure that you are enjoying the best and the maximum potential. Just a reminder, engagement rate is king, because you can improve your impressions per DAU rate or your ARPDAU by increasing both engagement rate and usage rate. But by increasing engagement rate, you are generating more first impressions that have the highest eCPM, and then you'll see the average ARPDAU and eCPM going up. Can you make sure the charger is not charging? Thanks. Second is A/B test. Ignore your gut. Many times we see that a developer thinks that, hey, I should do 30 seconds between ads, or I shouldn't add interstitial just because it's what I feel. But once you A/B test, many times the results surprise. So it's super important to A/B test and to base your decisions on data in general for every decision we are making in this world as a very analytical world. And the last point is think of ads from day one. When you are designing your game, think of ads. When you want to fix something in your game, think about rewarded video overall as an optional tool as well to fix any retention issues in your game as well. Second is know your players. This is where I recommend to look into segmentation. Not all users should have the same ad monetization strategy. You can segment your users by many different categories. It can be by revenue generator, right? Payers shouldn't have the same strategy. Users that engage with rewarded video and offer wall shouldn't have the same strategy. Zero economic value shouldn't have the same strategy. It can be by country, right? Maybe in the United States, you don't want to have offer wall, but in India, when your IAP is very low, offer wall makes much more sense. It can be also by device or by millions of other KPIs to look at. But if you want to squeeze the lemon, you need to segment your users and you need to adjust your monetization strategy per segment. And for each segment and segment, you can offer different ad units. As I said, maybe for some you are showing offer wall, for others not. Maybe for some you are showing interstitial, for others not. You can have different reward amount, right? You can say, hey, in the United States, IAP is strong. I don't want to rewarded video to compete with IAP and to cannibalize it, so the reward is not going to be that high. But in other countries, I can allow myself to have a very high reward and very high engagement, because either way, I don't have payers, so I'm not competing with the store. It can be different amount of impressions per user or capping, etc. But you got my point. In general, if you want to squeeze the lemon, have ad monetization strategy per segment. Know your ad wells is also important. Up until 6 months ago or a bit more, it wasn't very standard to analyze your revenue per user or per group of users from ads, right? It's very common in IIP. You are looking at each user and user, you see how much money you generated, then you are adjusting your monetization strategy, you're adjusting your user acquisition CPI according to the LTV that you get. But from ads, we got used to ignore it, and it's not the case anymore. All of the main platforms, including ironSource and our competitors, already offer user ad revenue for ads, meaning that you can actually analyze how much money you made per user or per group of users, and this should impact your decisions. Because you'll see that you'll have users that are generating a lot of revenue for you, ad wells. You have users that's generating zero revenue for you, and just like you are adjusting your strategy on IIP according to the wells, dolphin, minnows, you should do exactly the same on ad monetization. And another important thing that you should look at, again, everything that I'm saying here is from our platform and from our experience, is also to look at the data per cohort and not average numbers. If you just look at ARPDAU, just look at retention, just look at any other KPI, you don't really understand what made this difference and whether the cohort made a difference. For example, I'll give you an example. One of the things that you will see that if you are buying more users, meaning your user acquisition scale goes up, then your ARPDAU will go slightly up. Not because you improved your ARPDAU, because usually the impressions per user per day on day one is higher. And if you are having higher user acquisition these days, then you have more day one users. And you can make wrong conclusions if you just look at the average numbers. So what's important is actually to look if there is any change per cohort or per user age. Another example is what I said about rewarded video. What you should look also is not only what is the average engagement rate of rewarded video, what is the average engagement rate in day one, day two, day three. Maybe you will find exactly in which day you have a drop. This is an example of two different games. One is able to maintain the impressions of the engaged users throughout the lifetime of the user. You see day 1 or day 30, about the same. It's a different game that in the first day, the engagement is good, but it just drops very quickly. Probably it didn't adjust his rewarded video implementation to the level of the game after the user plays more than 1 day. This is it. This was 40 minutes about how to implement your ad monetization in the best way possible.